Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you the number plate panel from my classic Citroen DS. So this is where the number plate fixes on the front of the car, but because it's in quite a vulnerable position, it gets a lot of wind and rain and it rusts. So typically there's a broken off screw here. These little brackets are very rusty and not in good condition, and the edge here is quite rusty, and what I'll have to do, I'll have to clean it right up, make some new brackets for these, sort out the fixings and then repaint it.
This is one of those panels that's not very visible when it's on the car, so I've put off repairing it for years. I'll just take a quick walk around the panel and look at the problems I've got. Well, unusually, one problem I haven't got is these two vents at the end of the panel. They normally rust out, but in this case they're in pretty good shape, and that's a bonus. What's not so good is this edge of the panel, which is rusting away, and you can see that better in close-up. This hole in the top edge is split and has got quite rusty around the edge, and this bracket, which carries a threaded hole to screw the panel to the car, that's pretty rusty and will also need replacing. Same goes for this one at the other end of the panel, which is not just broken but has a sheared bolt stuck in it. First job on my list was the rusty panel edge. I'm concerned that a repair in this position will be difficult to seal and could trap water. It doesn't appear to be an essential part of the panel and it's not visible, so I'll cut it off and just protect the edge with some grommet strip if necessary. Here you can see that job's done. I've just cut the edge off with an angle grinder so I can move on to the next job. Now I'll take a look at this hole that's split. Looking at it in close-up, I can see that the edge of the metal is rusted, so I'll need to take that back to good metal before repairing it. I've started by cutting a groove through the rusty edge with an angle grinder. Now made a small repair plate to go behind the cut area. Here I've removed the paint and rust from the repair area, getting right into the back corner with a small wire wheel. With the repair plate clamped to the panel, I've tack welded it in place. The tack welds will hold it in position so I can remove the clamp and complete the welding. 2 more tack welds and the clamp is no longer needed. I can then seam weld the repair plate to the panel. This is how it looks from the outside, and after a clean up with a wire wheel. Now the slot I cut has been welded up. The outer area ground flat, followed by the inner edges of the repair. The panel should have a 9mm hole in this position, so here I've marked the centre of that hole and drilled a pilot hole. Then open that out to the 9mm diameter of the original. I'm happy with that, so now it's time to take a look at the 2 rusty fixing brackets. They're too rusty to repair, so I'll have to make new ones. The brackets are fixed to the panel by spot welds. These have to be drilled out so I can remove the old brackets. I use spot weld drills for this job. These have a flat top that cuts the layer of metal away without drilling a hole through the surface underneath the weld. And now you can just see faint circles here that indicate where the spot welds are. I'll drill through here carefully. The drill did a good job and has drilled cleanly through the bracket, but left the panel beneath intact. And the same with the second one. Now I'll make some replacement brackets, starting with a sheet of Zinc and folding it into a U shape. Zinc is mild steel coated with zinc to make it more rust-proof. Here I'm marking the new bracket up, ready to fold the fixing flanges. I'm using a piece of heavy gauge angle here as an edge for folding the brackets. Here's the 2 brackets folded up and ready to trim. I've clamped the old bracket to the new one I've made so I can mark in the shapes to cut out the flanges. And here I'm trimming the brackets down to size. Here's the bracket starting to take shape, and checking the depth of the old bracket, then marking up the new one ready to cut. Here are both the new brackets with the original one behind. The exact shape of these is not too critical. They just need to position the fixing surface in the right place. In the centre of these brackets was a 5mm threaded hole. I need to add these threads into my new brackets. I'll weld on one of these 5mm threaded fittings to do that. But before I do that, I need to run some tests on these fittings because I haven't used them before. I've clamped one to a scrap of metal and then welded to 3 of the corners using different power settings on the welder. This first one looks like too much power. The weld is very fluid and the edge of the bracket has melted away. The next one looks like not enough power. You can see the weld appears to have flowed over the surface of the bracket. The third one looks about right to me, so I've written down the welder settings on the test panel to use whenever I weld one of these inserts into a repair. Here I've cut the 2 clearance holes in the brackets and used a bolt to fix the threaded inserts to the bracket while I weld it. And now I have threads in the bracket as I need them. Finally, I need to weld the brackets to the panel in the correct position. I plan to do this on the car, so started by bolting each of them in their normal positions. Then I fixed the panel to the car and used a small jack to press the panel onto the bracket as an alignment check. They look fine, so I've removed the panel and painted the area where the brackets will fix with weld-through primer. Weld-through primer will protect the metal but still conduct electricity for welding. Here the panel's back on the car again and I've marked up the position where the 2 brackets will fix. And here the brackets are tack welded in place. Now I've fitted the complete panel with brackets back on the car to check that it fits correctly, which it does. With the fit confirmed, I've added some extra welds to the brackets for good measure. And now it's time to clean up the panel and give it a coat of etch primer. You can see I've screwed bolts into all the fixing holes to prevent paint getting into the threads. And with that done, the outside of the panel is also painted. Then I've given it a coat of high build primer as the surface is not that good. Finally, smooth that down, then a few coats of satin black. Finishing is definitely not my strength, but this panel is not particularly visible anyway. At some point in the future, when I'm getting some painting done, I'll get it professionally stripped and painted. And here's the finished panel fitted to the car. It now feels very solid with the new brackets and will hopefully last for some years to come.
So there it is, looking an awful lot better than it did. 2 nice strong brackets to hold it to the car. The whole assembly feels really firm and rigid on the front of the car now, just as it should. The split in the top edge is repaired, and with any luck this coat of paint that I've put on it will make it last for a good few more years to come. If you like watching this kind of restoration, keep an eye on my channel. I'll be uploading some more.